Hello and welcome to the first episode of Sunday Samvad. I have chosen to do this program on popular request from thousands of people who have been regularly sending me questions on ministries that I have charge of. As you all know, I hold the portfolios of health and family welfare, science and technology, as well as earth sciences. I feel privileged that a visionary leader like Shri Narendra Modi ji has given me this opportunity to handle such important sectors of the economy. Today, despite the COVID pandemic, which has caused a lot of economic turbulence worldwide, India is headed towards self-reliance, and we have not given up our aim of becoming a $5 trillion economy. Our government wants to build a self-reliant economy, one that is not dependent on others, an Atmanirbhar Bharat. That does not mean that we are not in sync with the world. We are. In fact, we want to walk hand in hand with global partners in every field. I am grateful that more than 1,000 people have written to me in response to hashtag Sunday Samvad with Dr. Harshvardhan. I have been able to take up only a few questions here. This is a first attempt at what I think is a good two-way communication between me and my social media followers. I hope you will appreciate this. So we start with a question from Madam Jyoti. What a timely question during the monsoon season. I can clearly see the lovely clouds gather as I answer your question, Jyoti ji. Your question is, what has the government done to improve monsoon predictions? Let me apprise you. The Ministry of Earth Sciences had launched the monsoon mission with the main objective to improve monsoon predictions in all time scales, short range to seasonal time scales. Under the mission, Ministry of Earth Sciences has improved models, procured one of the best computers, trained young scientists, and collaborated with leading scientists around the world. The second phase of the National Monsoon Mission is underway now. Under the Monsoon Mission, we hope to achieve implementation of state-of-the-art dynamical weather prediction systems for short range to seasonal time scales. We are also on the way to procure one of the best high-performance computers. This HPC shall be the best computer in the country and fourth best among the weather prediction centers after USA, UK and Japan. We are now able to carry out skillful short-range forecast up to 5 days. Earlier, this used to be only up to 3 days. We have also achieved about 75% accuracy in heavy rainfall forecasts. Similarly, heat waves are being predicted accurately up to 5 days in advance. On the agriculture front, there is good news. For farmers, we are able to give forecasts and advisories now up to 2 to 3 weeks in advance. Let me tell you, Jyoti ji, that as far as skillful seasonal monsoon prediction is concerned, This year, monsoon seasonal prediction 102% of low pressure area will be proved absolutely correct. Third party evaluation by the National Council for Applied Economic Research suggests the investments both in the computer and the model developments made in the monsoon mission have yielded about 50 times more returns in terms of economic benefits to farmers and fishermen. There are many more things that I could share about my department, particularly in this subject, but time doesn't permit me to do that. Now there is another question by Mr. Manish Raj. Sir, this is a question on COVID-19. Why were the recovery rate and fatality rate chosen as key matrices by the government? Let me tell you, India went into a complete lockdown very early, and this enabled us to contain the spread of COVID-19, and this also gave us ample time to build capacity required to battle COVID-19. You see, low mortality per million and low number of infections per million reflects effectiveness of this very early containment strategy. Our objective was to conduct early tracking, early testing, and then early treating. The other objective was to ensure that our people didn't succumb to this deadly disease. Early detection was the key factor for our high recovery rate, and early testing and early treatment ensured that the mortality remained low. And of course, we all know that India all along had one of the lowest mortality rates in the whole world. Then we have another question from Mr. Shubham. Are we self-reliant as far as COVID testing kits are concerned, or are we still dependent on China? Let me tell you, Shubham, that so far ICMR, our Indian Council for Medical Research, one of our very prestigious bodies, has validated 761 different types of diagnostic kits, of which 396 have been recommended till now. And out of that, a total of 272 of these recommended products are of indigenous origin. Enough indigenous validated diagnostic commodities are now available, which have made India self-reliant in terms of COVID-19 testing potential. The domestic supply has thereby improved, and we have also proactively taken other measures to reduce the dependence on imports. ऋषभ जी ने सवाल किया है, भारत की कोविड लड़ाई में हम कितने निर्भर हैं चीन पे, या ये हम अपने बलबूते पे लड़ रहे हैं अब? ऋषभ जी, आपको जानकर खुशी होगी कि आज हम किसी के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट नहीं है। चीन क्या, दुनिया के किसी देश के ऊपर हम इस लड़ाई को लड़ने के लिए डिपेंडेंट नहीं हैं। हमारे देशवासियों को याद होगा कि शुरुआती दौर में बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो इस लड़ाई को लड़ने के लिए आवश्यक थी, चाहे वो PPE किट्स थे, चाहे वो N95 मास्क थे, चाहे वो वेंटिलेटर्स थे, चाहे वो APIs थे, चाहे वो ड्रग्स थी, इन सब चीज़ों को हम बहुत सारी दूसरी कंट्रीज से इंपोर्ट करते थे, इंक्लूडिंग चाइना। लेकिन कुछ ही समय के अंदर हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में और सरकार के सभी विभागों ने मिलकर जिस प्रकार से प्रयास किया, आज चाहे वो पीपीई किट हो, उसके देश में 110 से ज़्यादा मैन्युफैक्चरर हैं, N95 के 10 मैन्युफैक्चरर हैं और वेंटिलेटर्स के 25 मैन्युफैक्चरर हैं। और इस प्रकार की चीज़ें हम आज दुनिया को एक्सपोर्ट करने की स्थिति में आ गए हैं। जो किट्स, बहुत महंगी टेस्टिंग किट्स हमें विदेशों से इंपोर्ट करनी पड़ती थी शुरुआती दौर में, आज उनके सैकड़ों मैन्युफैक्चरर देश के अंदर ICMR के द्वारा वैलिडेट हो चुके हैं। उनके द्वारा देश को पर्याप्त मात्रा में ये टेस्टिंग किट्स मिल रही हैं। मैं समझता हूँ कि अब हम किसी के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट नहीं है। प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में आत्मनिर्भर भारत केवल एक स्लोगन नहीं है, केवल एक सपना नहीं है। कोविड के खिलाफ लड़ाई में उसको हम देख रहे हैं कि ये सफलतापूर्वक सपना साकार हो चुका है। Now we shall take up the question by Anita Yadav ji. The question is, Sir, the Official Language Act provides that the Union Government shall use both Hindi and English in most administrative documents that are intended for the public. Why are all COVID-19 guidelines and latest updates on Ministry of Health and Family Welfare portal in English only? Anita ji, your concern is very valid. But let me share with you the fact that the world came to know about this disease in the beginning of January 2020. The virus itself was identified on 7th January 2020. There was little, if anything, known about the disease before that. The world began to develop a collective knowledge on the same, and we had to adapt, and discover this knowledge from scratch, learning from our own experiences in managing public health emergencies of this scale and magnitude. In this short span of past few months, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has issued more than 130 guidelines, advisories, SOPs for states and union territories alone. Apart from this, countless guidelines, advisories, SOPs have been issued for the consumption of hospitals and the various employees, etc. It must be realized and also appreciated that as far as technical and administrative guidelines meant for professionals, administrators, etc. go, they need to convey the exact and the intended meaning to its audience, which is sometimes difficult to ensure while translating into any other language. Having said that, we have been creating Hindi language visuals and AV media for general public, and also requesting the states simultaneously to do the same so as to ensure maximum understanding by their target audience. I hope you shall appreciate what I told you just now. Now we take up another question by Mr. Saurabh. Mr. Saurabh says, as you have stated several times, COVID cases are limited to a few states. But isn't it equally true that COVID testing is also skewed and limited to 5 to 7 states? Therefore, a direct inference from this would be that COVID will become more spread out when we spread out testing. Let me tell you that testing is not uniform in the country due to two reasons that are interlinked. COVID testing across India is done based on ICMR COVID strategy, where the focus has been to identify and test the most vulnerable and at-risk groups. Few key states, districts, emerged as epicenters where COVID spread rapidly, and hence the testing became skewed in these areas. Increasing tests by going against the ICMR strategy is unlikely to result in increase in COVID cases in the same proportion. We have a question by Madam Anupriya ji. Several states have doubled or even trebled their testing merely by increasing their number of antigen tests, which is actually against the ICMR guidelines, because RT-PCR is the gold standard test and the only confirmatory test. Should you not be updating the guidelines on testing protocol? Is there a ratio of antigen oblique RT-PCR which you have recommended that states must conduct? Anupriya ji, the ICMR's guidelines clearly state that rapid antigen tests are ideal screening tests for densely populated areas, containment and buffer zones, and a lot of states are focusing on screening. There are states where the optimal capacity of RT-PCR tests of late is not being utilized, and the Health Ministry has drawn their attention to the fact that they do have an installed capacity of conducting more RT-PCR tests, and hence they need to scale it up. We are now taking up another question by Mr. Roshan from Muzaffarpur. Mr. Roshan asks me, in a recent press conference, the Health Ministry stated that the cost of RT-PCR tests has reduced. But let me tell you, labs have not reduced their prices. Can you tell me why? What are you doing about it? It's making the citizens angry and frustrated. Roshan ji, thank you for asking this. COVID-19 testing in government sector is at no cost, whereas the prices of testing by private sector are being fixed by the individual state governments. This issue can be taken up by individual states. The policy of the government to indigenize production of test kits has started producing results. Since Indian companies are producing the kits, the cost has recently gone down dramatically. The issue of capping the cost of testing in private labs has been discussed time and again, and directives have been issued to states to cap the pricing. Many states have responded very positively and capped the prices. At the Union Health Ministry, this is always a crucial issue and concern. We continue to deliberate and advise states to lower prices as much as possible. अगला सवाल सानू जी कर रहे हैं, मंत्री जी मालूम नहीं कि आपको इस बात का संज्ञान है कि नहीं, लेकिन कोविड पेंडेमिक के दौरान लोग बर्बाद हो गए। जो प्राइवेट अस्पताल में फंसे उनके घर लुट गए। सरकार प्राइवेट अस्पताल के रेट क्यों नहीं फिक्स कर देती कोविड ट्रीटमेंट के लिए? केजरीवाल ने करने की कोशिश तो करी थी, आप लोगों ने तो कोशिश भी नहीं की। सानू जी, शायद आपको इस बात की जानकारी नहीं है कि भारत सरकार ने ही शायद इस संदर्भ में सबसे पहले पहल की। हमारे गृह मंत्री जी ने और मैंने स्वयं सबसे पहले दिल्ली की सरकार के साथ मीटिंग की, और उस मीटिंग के अंदर प्राइवेट अस्पतालों के लिए ट्रीटमेंट के लिए रेट्स को बहुत ज़्यादा रेट्स से एक बहुत ही मॉडरेट लेवल तक लाकर फिक्स किया। लगातार स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से रिक्वेस्ट करके जो टेस्ट है उनकी जो चार्जेस हैं उनके ऊपर कैपिंग करने के लिए आग्रह किया। बहुत सारे स्टेट्स ने उसको फॉलो किया। जो 4,500 में टेस्ट होता था उसको 2,400 रुपये के अंदर उसको कम कराया। और आयुष्मान भारत योजना के माध्यम से गरीबों के लिए कोविड का ट्रीटमेंट उस योजना के अंतर्गत शामिल किया। CGHS के रेट्स इत्यादि का जो पैकेज था वो कोविड के ट्रीटमेंट के अंदर भी उसको लागू कराया। और भारत सरकार के द्वारा लगातार स्टेट्स के साथ मिलकर, प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स के साथ मिलकर इस बात के लिए योजनाबद्ध तरीके से आग्रहपूर्वक प्रयास किया गया। और मैंने व्यक्तिगत तौर पर स्वयं लगातार प्राइवेट डॉक्टरों से इस बात की अपील की है कि कोविड के इलाज के मसले पर जितना भी मरीज़ों की सहायता की जा सकती है वो की जानी चाहिए। भारत सरकार ने अपनी सारी सुविधाओं में सारे देश के अंदर सरकारी व्यवस्थाओं को विकसित करने के लिए बहुत भारी पैमाने पर सपोर्ट दिया और सब प्रकार का सरकारी व्यवस्थाओं में देश भर में इलाज और सारे टेस्ट पूरी तरह से निःशुल्क उपलब्ध कराए गए हैं। Now we take up another question by Mr. Aman. It's a good question. Is the government studying cases of people who have recovered from COVID? Please share any conclusions that you may have arrived at from such studies. Let me answer this question. Emerging evidence across the globe is suggesting that COVID-19 may not be just an acute illness, as was thought initially, but may have some long-term sequelae, particularly among those afflicted with more severe form of the disease. Expert group consultations are already going on to review the emerging evidence and generate our own data on organ system specific to respiratory system, renal system, cardiovascular and gastrointestinal system sequelae of COVID. I had only very recently interacted with the subcommittees formed under some very senior clinical experts on this issue and advised them to continue and further enhance research in this subject area. All AIIMS-like institutions have been requested to undertake research to study long-term impact of COVID. ICMR is establishing a national clinical registry on COVID that will provide insights into clinical course of COVID-19 disease, its spectrum and outcome of patients. Central government hospitals including AIIMS, Delhi have already launched special clinics for COVID recovered patients to give us more insights into the behavior of this disease in our population. Now we have another question by Mr. Manish Kumar. Manish ji asks, how many doctors, nurses, COVID warriors have lost their lives battling COVID across India? Can we have a separate daily update on deaths of such COVID warriors, just like we have daily updates of total number of COVID cases? This question makes me thoroughly emotional. I feel sad about it. To give a precise number of those who have become martyrs in this battle against COVID may be difficult right now. But we all know that hundreds of COVID warriors have sacrificed their lives in pursuit of their noble duty. This includes doctors, nurses, paramedics, journalists, sanitation and security staff, police and paramilitary personnel, and so on. I also take this opportunity to thank all those families who have made equal sacrifice by sending their family members to work in such trying times. My very sincere, heartfelt gratitude and condolences to the mothers of these great Corona warriors who have served the nation selflessly. We have another question from Ms. Pallavi. We have always seen you as a social reformer. We thought that as Health Minister of India, you will take steps to break the powerful pharmaceutical doctors' nexus, which doesn't allow prescription of generic drugs. Government should launch a platform to check the generic names of various medicines and ensure that doctors do not promote expensive brands. Pallavi ji, I hope you are aware that Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Program is a campaign launched by the Department of Pharmaceuticals in association with Central Pharma Public Sector Undertakings to provide quality medicines at very affordable prices to the masses through dedicated outlets called Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras. These provide generic medicines at much lesser price. The potency of these medicines are the same as compared to expensive branded medicines available in the open market. I am a well-known crusader for patient rights. I have been recommending that doctors must prescribe only generic drugs. Only this can break the prices of expensive branded medicines. I was the first to introduce the essential drug policy of WHO when I was the health minister in Delhi. This was way back in 1995. Introduction of the essential drug policy ensured many relevant aspects, including promoting the rational prescribing of drugs by doctors. This model was called the Delhi model by the WHO and was replicated by a dozen states in India and few countries as well. Now we have a question by Madam Rani. Dear Madam Rani, I can see from your profile that you are an energetic teacher and a great nationalist who has interest in music. You are in a noble profession and we have great respect for teachers in the Indian tradition. Your question to me is, our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji had spoken on 15th of August that the government has issued biodegradable sanitary napkins to 5 crore women across the country. However, it is the non-biodegradable sanitary napkins that are presently flooding the market and people are unaware about their harmful effect. Why doesn't the government consider imposing a ban on these? Sir, why don't you take the lead in this matter as the health minister of the country? Rani ji, let me tell you that in the month of June, the central government had announced that biodegradable sanitary napkins are being distributed through the Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana at a cost of rupees 1 per pad. Between March to May this year, 1.42 crore pads have been sold under this scheme despite the lockdown and the curtailed movement of people. The plan is to make available such napkins across 6,300 Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Program Kendras across the country. Menstrual hygiene is a big mission for us at the Health Ministry. Government is according great priority to several hygiene issues related to women and girl child. As per your suggestion, I shall definitely focus more and more on this issue and take the lead. Thanks for your very warm words. Our Prime Minister has perhaps been the first politician ever across the globe who has been talking about toilets and hygiene to be made available for our mothers and sisters, even in the remotest districts of India. We are committed to this. Any suggestions from the public in this regard are welcome. and can be sent to me either at the ministry or on my email. I find increased awareness amongst women on this issue, and this makes me very happy. But affordability and the issue of trust remained a barrier in making a clear switch to biodegradable alternatives. Oh, great. We have a question from one of our honorable ex-member of parliament from Andhra Pradesh, Madam Geeta Kothapalli ji. Dear Geeta ji, thanks a lot for raising a very pertinent question related to disposal of used face masks, the danger caused by irresponsible disposal of used masks, and the threat that this causes to the environment. Let me read your question. Honorable Sir, used PPEs, N95 masks and other medical waste is becoming a big menace to the environment. They are thrown in public areas and this results in heavy contamination. Is the Health Ministry coming up with a proper solution to contain such a dangerous situation? Why are you not using advocacy methods to create higher awareness amongst the public? Dear Geeta ji, Government of India has constantly been advocating the use of cloth masks and face covers for the common man. Repeated guidelines have been issued and the same have been advertised, encouraging the public to wear reusable face masks and avoid N95s and PPEs. Advertisements and public action campaigns have been running on radio and television, advocating correct disposal of used masks and explaining that this is essential to contain the spread of the disease. The Health Ministry has also released guidelines for handling, treatment and disposal of waste generated during treatment, diagnosis, quarantine of COVID-19 patients. We have another question from Ayushi Sharma ji, who belongs to the field of digital marketing in Kolkata. She says, it is learned that due to the COVID pandemic, government has been ignoring regular immunization programs and they have almost come to a halt. This is most unfortunate. What steps are being taken to ensure COVID doesn't impact the standard immunization program? First of all, Ayushi ji, let me thank you for raising this very important subject. And also let me tell you that this subject is also very close to my heart. And this has been one of the biggest concerns of the government since the outbreak of COVID pandemic. These disruptions threaten to reverse hard-won progress to reach more children and adolescents with a wider range of vaccines, which has already been hampered by a decade of stalling coverage. However, let me assure you that although in the first 3 months of the outbreak, due to it being a most unexpected and unparalleled event, everyone was caught off guard and the immunization program had begun to suffer. But later, we drew up a detailed strategy to bring the program back on rails, and the government is ensuring that this happens soon. Let me also tell you that as chairman of the executive board of WHO, I have been voicing my concern over this issue at that forum as well. Both WHO and UNICEF have been very concerned about the immunization programs getting derailed. However, please do understand that this has happened across the world and not just in India. By and large, the state governments have also been sensitized to the importance of ensuring that the regular immunization program doesn't get derailed. You already know that we have a very dynamic mission Indradhanush program already launched in the country under the leadership of our Prime Minister since 2014, where we intend to ensure that 100% children in our country, they get the benefit of the universal immunization program, and not a single child is left without a vaccine against a vaccine preventable disease. We have another question from Suman Raj ji, an avid video gamer from Andhra Pradesh. If antigen tests are not at all accurate, why are we doing them at all and wasting government money? Is this being done just to inflate numbers and provide a false sense of security? Let me tell you, while recommending rapid antigen test, the government has always emphasized on the following issues. RT-PCR is the gold standard for diagnosis of COVID-19, everybody knows. However, the test results are available only after 6 to 8 hours of sample receipt in the laboratory. RT-PCR test requires a specialized laboratory setup, due to which there are limitations with respect to the access and widespread availability of the test. Rapid antigen test has been recommended only for settings where RT-PCR is either not available, as in containment zones, etc., or in medical emergency situations when one cannot wait for RT-PCR results due to high turnaround time or non-availability of the RT-PCR test. The transmission efficiency of COVID-19 is high. No antiviral drug has been found to be effective against it so far. Remdesivir can only reduce the number of days of hospitalization. Hence, the best way to control this infection is through prevention. The chain of transmission can be broken by detecting an infected individual, tracing his contacts, and isolating them. In order to find such infected individuals, one needs to detect them. RT-PCR requires at least 3 to 5 hours time to conduct the actual test. It needs samples to be put up for testing in lots. It affects the turnaround time of the test. By and large, it would mean that a person would get to know the result only after about 24 hours. This gives additional time to the virus to spread. Though rapid antigen tests have lower sensitivity as compared to RT-PCR, it can be done in the field and within 45 minutes. Hence, these rapid tests are being preferred. ICMR advisory clearly mentions that a symptomatic person with negative rapid antigen test should be subjected to RT-PCR test also. Therefore, inflating number of tests done and creating a false sense of security is definitely not the reason for using rapid antigen tests. We have a question from Soni Singh ji. As you know, sir, vaccines take years and years to develop. Do you think people should trust these vaccines which have just completed trials? Are they safe just after trials? Or should they continue to use social vaccine and wait for a few years before taking these vaccines? What would you advise? Let me highlight the answer to this. Number one, no date is fixed for the vaccine launch. I can assure you on behalf of my ministry and the Prime Minister of the country that no corners will be cut in the clinical trials. Vaccine will be made available only when the government can ensure its safety and efficacy. Please have full trust in your government and your health minister. We have another question by Santosh Mishra ji. Sir, please enable the people who have tested to get the RT-PCR test results online from the ICMR site. This will save precious time in getting the result and also lessen the anxiety cost. Santosh ji, this is a good suggestion. This would entail development of a software program to deliver the test results to an individual who has access to internet. There are certain cautions one may have to undertake to develop it. For example, the results should be accessed by the individual himself or herself. This may mean that the data will have to be password protected. At the same time, one needs to also remember that not all have access to internet or will be comfortable in accessing data by use of passwords. Moreover, health is a state subject. The states will have to be taken on board to develop such mechanisms. However, this suggestion will be passed on to the National Task Force on COVID-19 and the Joint Monitoring Group of the Ministry to evaluate its feasibility and the processes. आकांक्षा जी और जैस्मीन ने मुझसे सवाल किया है, सर आपने कहा कि दिसंबर तक वैक्सीन आ जाएगी इंडिया में। क्या आपको इस वैक्सीन पे इतना भरोसा है कि आप खुद इसे लगवाएंगे? क्या आप बाकी कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर और उनके परिवार वालों को भी कहेंगे ये वैक्सीन लगवाने के लिए? आकांक्षा जी और जैस्मीन जी, आपके प्रश्न के मेरे समझ से दो पहलू हैं। अगर तो आपके मन में ये विचार आ रहा है कि जो भी वैक्सीन उपलब्ध होगी सारे ट्रायल्स के बाद, क्या वो पूरी तरह से सेफ़ होगी या नहीं, और अगर वो पूरी तरह से सेफ़ होगी या नहीं इसके बारे में आपके मन में या देश के लोगों के मन में शक शुबा है, तो उस शक शुबा को दूर करने के लिए भारत के स्वास्थ्य मंत्री अपने और अपने कैबिनेट के सहयोगियों को क्या सबसे पहले वो वैक्सीन लगवाएंगे? तो इसका तो मेरा उत्तर यह है कि अगर आपको सरकार, वैज्ञानिकों और वैक्सीन की डेवलपमेंट से जुड़े हुई सारी वैज्ञानिक प्रक्रिया पर कहीं पर भी भरोसे में कमी है, तो मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि अगर उस भरोसे को और मजबूत करने के लिए डॉक्टर हर्षवर्धन को, केंद्रीय स्वास्थ्य मंत्री को सबसे पहली वैक्सीन लगवानी होगी तो मैं सबसे पहले लगवाऊंगा। लेकिन इसके साथ साथ मेरा व्यक्तिगत तौर पर दूसरा मत भी है कि मैं ये समझता हूं कि जब वैक्सीन उपलब्ध होगी तो देश में जिन लोगों को सबसे पहले वैक्सीन की ज़रूरत है, वो हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स हो सकते हैं, वो बुज़ुर्ग हो सकते हैं, वो ऐसे लोग हो सकते हैं जिनकी जो इम्यूनिटी कम है, बहुत सारी दूसरी बीमारियों से ग्रसित हैं, या जिनको हम कह सकते हैं वल्नरेबल ग्रुप्स, तो सबसे पहले वैक्सीन उनको लगनी चाहिए। और मैं समझता हूं कि मैं उस कैटेगरी में नहीं आता जिसमें मुझे सबसे पहले लगनी चाहिए। लेकिन देश के हित में और देश के लोगों का विश्वास बरकरार रखने के लिए जो भी कुछ आवश्यक होगा उसको हम निसंकोच करेंगे, ये मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूँ। There are a couple of questions on vaccine status and availability. You all have asked a lot of questions on actual status of vaccine production and its availability. Mamta Nagpal ji has asked, the most important question today is, when will the COVID-19 vaccine be ready for use and how soon will the government ensure availability for all? Anita Kumari ji, who is a digital marketer by profession, has asked, can you share the status of Indian vaccines? Amrita Sharma ji has asked, out of all the vaccines under trial in India, which one do you think is the most promising? So let me answer all your queries. Let me respond first to Mamta Nagpal ji. The government agencies, along with the vaccine manufacturers, are working tirelessly on developing vaccines following highest standards of science and ethics. Work has already been started on prioritization of vulnerable groups for vaccination. Besides issues like vaccine security, cost, equity, cold chain requirements, production timelines, etc., are also being discussed intensely. Anita ji, now I will answer your question related to vaccine availability. The vaccine trials for different vaccines are ongoing in India and globally. At present, we cannot predict which vaccine will prove efficacious and emerge as the best vaccine. Adequate number of doses of such an effective vaccine will have to be manufactured to meet the requirement. A vaccine expert group has been established recently by the Government of India to look into various issues related to delivery of vaccines to vulnerable population. The group is developing the strategy. It is expected that by the first quarter of 2021, we shall definitely know the results of these vaccine trials. Efforts are being made to ensure that vaccine manufacturers will try to produce these vaccines parallelly so that we do not lose precious time in providing vaccines to the population. Now, on to the question raised by Madam Amrita Sharma ji regarding evaluation of which vaccine could be more promising. In India, both Department of Biotechnology as well as Indian Council of Medical Research have been proactively responding to the emerging situation to support advancement of vaccine candidates. India is actively partnering with Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, CEPI. Trials at different phases are ongoing with respect to several vaccines in Indian laboratories, private as well as public, and in hospitals. The indigenously developed vaccine at the most advanced stage is the one being developed collaboratively by National Institute of Virology, Pune and Bharat Biotech. This is based on an inactivated SARS-CoV-2 virus isolated by NIV Pune. Additionally, ICMR is collaborating with Serum Institute of India to undertake trials of two vaccines, one developed by Oxford University and the other being developed by Codagenics USA and Serum Institute of India. On the drug development front, the principal scientific advisor to the Government of India has constituted a science technology core group on COVID-19. Under the aegis of this, a task force has been constituted focused on repurposing of drugs for COVID-19. So far, 19 molecules have been reviewed by this task force. However, till date, the data on efficacy of different investigational drugs therapies being used in the treatment of COVID-19 is not absolute, and more research is still ongoing. Nevertheless, early reporting of cases and institution of supportive treatment, including oxygen therapy, still remains our best bet against COVID-19 as far as clinical management goes. भारत शर्मा जी ने एक सवाल किया है. मैं भारत शर्मा जी का स्वागत करता हूं जो थर्ड ईयर बीटेक के विद्यार्थी हैं और मथुरा से मुझसे सवाल पूछ रहे हैं. उन्होंने बहुत ही एक इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट हमारे सामने रखा है और वो पूछ रहे हैं कि सर, डू यू थिंक दैट आफ्टर द कोरोना वैक्सीन इज़ रेडी इट विल हेल्प टू एंड दिस पेंडेमिक? यानी कि वैक्सीन बन जाने के बाद क्या कोरोना ख़त्म हो जाएगा, और अगर हाँ तो इसमें कितना टाइम लगेगा, या फिर हमारी लाइफ का ये कोरोना एक पार्ट बन जाएगा आम डिजीज़ की तरह? भारत जी, मैं आपके सवाल का दो पार्ट्स में उत्तर दूंगा। देखिए, जिस प्रकार से हमें इन्फेक्शन होता है कोरोना वायरस का, तो हमारे शरीर में उसके खिलाफ एंटीबॉडीज़ बनती हैं, और जिसको इन्फेक्शन होता जा रहा है वो एक प्रकार से समाज का एक वर्ग इस कोरोना के खिलाफ इम्यूनिटी डेवलप करता जा रहा है। वैक्सीन का भी यही काम है कि हम वैक्सीन के माध्यम से समाज के बहुत बड़े वर्ग और जो खासकर ज़्यादा वल्नरेबल है उसको वैक्सीन देकर वहाँ पर हम जो एंटीबॉडीज़ हैं उनको बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। ज़्यादातर ये मान्यता है कि जब 50-60-70% तक लोग उनके शरीर में एंटीबॉडीज़ किसी सोसाइटी में बन जाती हैं तो फिर वायरस जितनी तेज़ी से समाज में स्प्रेड करता है उसको उतनी तेज़ी से स्प्रेड करने की संभावना कम हो जाती है। उसको हम लोग हर्ड इम्यूनिटी कहते हैं। अभी ये इस वायरस के बारे में एस्टैब्लिश्ड नहीं है कि कितने परसेंट लोगों के शरीर में एंटीबॉडीज़ बनने के बाद ये हर्ड इम्यूनिटी डेवलप होगी। व्यक्तिगत तौर पर मेरा विचार ये है कि जैसे जैसे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को, चाहे वो वैक्सीन के माध्यम से या इन्फेक्शन के माध्यम से, इम्यूनिटी डेवलप होती जाएगी, जो वायरस का प्रकोप है वो कम होता जाएगा। और समय के साथ धीरे धीरे जैसे दूसरे वायरसेस भी समय समय पर आए और आने के बाद वो समाज के अंदर कुछ कुछ स्थानों पर, कुछ कुछ देशों में, कुछ कुछ प्रांतों में कभी कभी वो अपना प्रकोप थोड़ी मात्रा के अंदर थोड़े लोगों के बीच में दिखाते हैं। उसको हम लोग अंग्रेज़ी भाषा में कहते हैं कि वो वायरस या वो बीमारी एक पर्टिकुलर स्थान पर एंडेमिक हो गई। तो शायद उसी प्रकार से कुछ समय के बाद इस वायरस का भी इसी प्रकार का हश्र होगा। लेकिन ये कितने समय के बाद होगा, कितने समय के बाद इसका इन्फेक्शन काफ़ी सिग्निफिकेंटली कम होगा, इसके बारे में एकदम कोई करेक्ट एस्टिमेट करना आज संभव नहीं है। वैक्सीन के आने का भी हमें इंतज़ार करना है, लेकिन तब तक सारी सावधानियां, जिसको मैंने हमेशा सोशल वैक्सीन का नाम दिया है, यानी मास्क, सोशल डिस्टेंस और हाइजीन से जुड़े हुए इश्यूज़, इनके ऊपर जितना बड़े पैमाने पर हमारे समाज के अंदर हम ध्यान देंगे तो शायद इस वायरस का ट्रांसमिशन धीरे धीरे काबू करने में हम इसके माध्यम से भी सफलता प्राप्त करेंगे। There is a very interesting question by Arun Sharma ji. How do you take care of yourself during this pandemic? Any tips you want to give to others? Arun ji, there is nothing secret about it. Whatever I have been preaching to the rest of the country through all possible means of communication, I have myself been practicing it. That's the only way by which I am trying to take care of myself. You see, even while I am talking to you, I am still wearing a mask. I am trying to maintain social distance with everyone, even while I am at home or in office or in the hospital or wherever I am. I try to ensure that I give adequate attention to issues of hand hygiene, respiratory etiquettes. Also, I try to avoid going to places where it is not necessary to go. I try to avoid crowded places. And at home, I focus thoroughly on good quality nutrition, 60 minutes walk every day, supplemented with pranayam and yogic exercises. I think that's all what I have been doing, and this is what I have been teaching to all of you also. There is another question from Santosh Kumar ji. Sir, kindly allow emergency authorization of COVID-19 vaccination for healthcare workers older people, armed forces personnel with underlying diseases before the winter sets in? Let me reply to your question and apprise you that the Government of India is considering emergency authorization of COVID-19 vaccination. If there is a consensus, we may go ahead with it, especially in the case of senior citizens and people working in high-risk settings. Normally, the third trial takes about 6 to 9 months. But if the government decides, this period can be cut short by giving an emergency authorization. However, any emergency authorization is always done by adopting reinforced safeguard so that people need not worry about the safety. A high-level group has been formed to monitor the pace of vaccine development under the direct supervision of the Honorable Prime Minister. And expanded workforce will be trained to administer these vaccines to immunize as much of the population as possible speedily. I assure you that there will be no shortcut on safety or effectiveness, and that vaccine will be given emergency authorization only if it meets the highest standards. We have another question from Varsha ji from Bihar. Varsha ji, I see from your profile that you are a great fan of Prime Minister Modi ji, like many other millions of people in this country. Thanks for placing your trust in our government. Now let me move on to your question. Sir, you have done commendable work as the Health Minister. However, the way COVID was handled, it has left a bad taste in the mouth. We had to buy plasma and remdesivir at black market rates. We did not get government hospital beds, and the private hospitals robbed us of our savings. Sir, my question to you is, as and when the COVID vaccine comes, will it be free for all, or will it be only for the richy rich? Dear Varsha ji, the first part of your question is about how convalescent plasma therapy and remdesivir were difficult for the common man to obtain as treatment for COVID, and how there were reports of black marketing. Let me tell you that the government went all out to ensure that enough vigilance was exercised by the government in this respect, which is why prices are now lower than they are in the rest of the world. Government of India has made every effort to ensure accessibility and affordability of all drugs and other therapeutics to all citizens, irrespective of their paying capacities. We have taken cognizance of reports of alleged black marketing of drugs like remdesivir and have asked Central Drugs Standard Control Organization to take suitable action against the same along with their state counterparts. Coming to the issue of vaccine availability and accessibility, Government of India has constituted a national expert group on vaccine administration for COVID-19 on 7th of August 2020 under the chairmanship of Dr. V.K. Paul, Member Health Niti Aayog. The group will ensure that an efficacious and safe vaccine as and when available is provided to citizens of the country. Although in my opinion it would be too premature to comment on the price of vaccine which is yet to be developed, I assure you that the vaccine will be first made available to those who need it the most, irrespective of their paying capacity. Next question is by Mr. Anurag. Mr. Anurag says, Sir, in retrospect, what do you think you could have done differently now that you know how COVID pandemic has evolved to a stage where we have 80,000 cases every day? Anurag ji, if I look back at the journey of this fight against COVID from January 8 when I had organized the first meeting of experts in the country, followed by so many actions, whether issuing detailed advisory to all the states, whether strengthening community surveillance in the country, whether ensuring surveillance at points of entry, whether that effective lockdown followed by unlock, and so many capacity building exercises for hospitals and for various PPEs and other things. And the way we improved and strengthened our capacity of testing, doing 1 million tests per day now. From one lab, we have gone up to over 1600 labs in the country. Within 3 hours, anywhere in the country you travel and you get a lab where you can get a COVID test done. This is the same test for which the samples used to go to America for testing a couple of years back. Right now, it may be difficult for me to say what better we could have done. I feel that we have put in our heart and soul into this fight against COVID. We have done our best, and whatever we could study, whatever we could implement from the experience of the past of having eradicated diseases like smallpox and polio, having handled Ebola in 2014, having handled many other viruses like Nipah, Zika, H1N1 and so many others. But at this stage, it may be difficult. Maybe when we finish with the pandemic and then we study and look back, maybe I may be able to answer you better. But right now I feel, under the able leadership of our Prime Minister, we have tried to do the best. सुनीता सैनी जी ने प्रश्न किया है, आजकल चर्चा है नेशनल डिजिटल हेल्थ मिशन की, लेकिन मंत्री जी लोगों को डर भी लग रहा है, जैसे आधार के बिना राशन कार्ड नहीं मिलता है, वैसे क्या डिजिटल कार्ड के चक्कर में हॉस्पिटल में एडमिशन नहीं मिलेगा? ओह सुनीता जी, मैं आश्चर्यचकित हूँ कि किस प्रकार की भ्रांतियाँ समाज में फैल रही हैं। कई हमारे संज्ञान में आया है कि वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट भी अनेक प्रकार की इस तरह की भ्रांतियाँ समाज में फैला रहे हैं। प्रधानमंत्री जी हमेशा जो भी काम करते हैं वो देश के, समाज के, लोगों के व्यापक हित में करते हैं, और उन्होंने जो आह्वान किया 15 अगस्त को लाल किले की प्राचीर से देश में नेशनल डिजिटल हेल्थ मिशन को लॉन्च करने का, वो बहुत ही दूरगामी सोच है। भारत दुनिया के कुछ गिने चुने पहले देशों में से है जहां इतने बड़े देश में नेशनल डिजिटल हेल्थ मिशन को लॉन्च करने की किसी प्रधानमंत्री ने सोच विकसित की है, हिम्मत की है। पहली बात तो मैं आपके मन से ये डर दूर करना चाहता हूँ कि किसी भी प्रकार की इसके आने के कारण आपको अस्पताल में या स्वास्थ्य सेवाओं में सब प्रकार की सुविधाएं मिलने में कोई व्यवधान नहीं होने वाला है। पूरी तरह से ये योजना वॉलंटरी है। आपका जो हेल्थ का आईडी है वो कोई ज़बरदस्ती नहीं बना सकता, लेकिन जिन लोगों का भी बन जाएगा और जो भी लोग इसके अंदर आगे आएंगे उनको निश्चित रूप से और ज़्यादा बेहतर और पारदर्शी तरीके से बेहतर इलाज की सुविधा उनको मिलने की संभावना बढ़ जाएगी। यूँ तो भारत सरकार ने प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन में, आप जानते हैं कि आयुष्मान भारत जैसी योजनाओं को लागू किया है, जहां 5 लाख रुपए तक का इलाज गरीब आदमी को मिलता है देश के बड़े से बड़े अस्पतालों के अंदर। नेशनल डिजिटल हेल्थ मिशन को आने वाले वर्षों में सारे भारत में हम लोग लागू करने वाले हैं, और इसके कारण जो यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ का जो हमारा लक्ष्य है, यानी सभी लोगों के लिए सब प्रकार की स्वास्थ्य की सुविधाएं बेहतर ढंग से उपलब्ध कराई जाएं, बिना किसी प्रकार का उनके जीवन में आउट ऑफ पॉकेट एक्सपेंडिचर कराए बगैर, चाहे वो इलाज की हो, चाहे वो प्रिवेंशन की हो, चाहे वो पॉजिटिव हेल्थ की हो, चाहे वो प्रमोटिव हेल्थ की हो। ये सारी चीज़ों को बेहतर ढंग से करने के अंदर पारदर्शी तरीके से ये नेशनल डिजिटल हेल्थ मिशन बहुत बड़ा योगदान करने वाला है। अभी 6 यूनियन टेरिटरीज़ में इसको 15 अगस्त से लागू किया गया है और बहुत जल्दी इसको सारे देश में लागू किया जाएगा। आपको बिल्कुल निश्चिंत रहने की आवश्यकता है कि किसी भी प्रकार से कोई आपको इसके कार्ड मांगने वाला नहीं है इलाज करने के लिए। इलाज तो आपको जैसे पहले मिलता था वैसे ही मिलता रहेगा। Then there is a question by Shilpa Sharma ji from Bihar, and I'm happy there is something about the Science and Technology Ministry also. To achieve an Atmanirbhar Bharat and to achieve a $5 trillion economy, we need to give a push to science and technology as well as to innovation. What exactly is being done about this? I agree with you that there is a big push that is required to be given to science, technology and innovation so that we become self-reliant as a nation. Dear Shilpa ji, you will be happy to know that we are currently formulating an evidence-driven, inclusive science, technology and innovation policy, STIP 2020 for India. This policy would enable us to become self-reliant, mainstream traditional knowledge systems with conventional R&D, strengthen industry, academia, government interconnectedness, and promote equity. Achieving an Atmanirbhar Bharat would need a greater focus on the development of indigenous technologies and encouragement to grassroots level innovation. The new science technology policy aims to fulfill the dreams and aspirations of millions of young Indian scientists and students. This can only be done when we make policy formulation inclusive and participatory. Government is also giving a huge thrust to small and medium industry which can thrive if indigenous technologies and innovations can help them in optimal utilization. Therefore, as Science and Technology Minister, I am trying my best to make this happen.